At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Do I have a motion to reconvene the March 20th? At the 20th, we convened so many times. Meeting of the Board of Supervisors. So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. All right, gentlemen, we are here tonight to discuss the proposed 1920 budget and any other issues raised by the Board of Supervisors members. Everyone is here. I want to thank everyone who came to Mr. Brown's memorial yesterday. Much appreciated. Everyone's supporting the family. With that, I'm going to turn the meeting over. Do you have anything you'd like to start out with?
I have both budgets. I didn't know whether you wanted to just go through questions, which y'all had. We replaced your pages with page numbers so that your book should have, keep up. So if there's any questions, I can go back through basically the highlights, but I think you're all familiar with the basic numbers that are in there. There are 3 backfill firefighter positions, and the chief's here to discuss any of those requests. But we have an IT support person, and I can fill in on any of that if you would like to know about what the justification for that one person. And then 2 SRO positions. I know the sheriff asked for 4, but that exceeds the number of schools we had. But anyway, I recommended 2.
After 2 that's listed under deputies.
Correct. Well, 2 SROs. He asked for 4 deputies, 2 dispatchers, and other things, but along with 4 there's 2 SROs proposed, which will give us a total of 4, and we have 5 schools, so it'll be a little bit of sharing between schools, but on the elementary side. So those are the total 6 positions that are in the budget.
I'm going to start, if you don't mind, and ask it a question.
Is it possible to bend the table around a little bit?
Yeah, I'm sort of craning my neck.
Yeah, sure.
Jeff, if you employed some of us, we can't see you guys.
I thought that was better for you guys. Is that better?
Yeah, now if somebody wants my attention, I can see you a little bit more. Thank you. Jeff, you okay? You want to move it some more?
I'm like, no, that was a great invention.
Thank you.
Don't go down there.
On the resource officers, is there any reason we couldn't hire 2 part-times in place of 1 so that the children are in school and the teachers are there for 200 days out of the year, so that you've got a body there the days that the students are there?
I don't think law enforcement works on that same teacher. Remember, teachers are full-time. They only have to work their contract, and they're off the summer, but they're considered full-time employees with benefits. So I think to try to find a law enforcement officer that's willing to do that part-time, you're going to be off in the summer, is going to be more difficult. But that becomes a question for the sheriff's department.
Second, yeah, we should have. That's what I said.
That's a spray paint truck.
Now, Nancy, on that note, I actually know of a former police officer, a 7-year veteran who's working in the school system. So I don't know if that's something we can approach with the school board and say you may have 1 on your staff already. If we can work something out.
But is he in the educational field, or is he as a resource?
It happens to be a she, and she's working as part of the school system, not as a resource officer. But I think that's the kind of person you're looking for, a retired police officer or former police officer that could provide that same sort of support.
Isn't that what we do? I mean, what do we do with our courts?
Retired post.
And so how are those people paid?
If they're part-time, paid at the same rate as a regular officer.
And they're deputies.
They're deputies.
They're paid at the same rate as a regular officer, so they're hourly?
They're hourly. So you take up a start pay, Alan, help me if I'm wrong here, but that was part of the pay plan and the pay study, because they were losing people to other jurisdictions out of the courts under, because we were paying $10 an hour, so it's way low.
Is the, just out of curiosity, is the sheriff's, under sheriff services, I label my own pages, but under sheriff services, it says courthouse security fee, 124, is that them?
No.
No.
Fee, that would be revenue.
Oh, okay, that's under revenue, okay.
Are we gonna do anything with that?
I can't, whatever you want.
Neither, I can't see well, my glasses come
Oh, okay.
out this week, with the low light.
Okay, I mean, I just brought the spreadsheets in case we had specific questions that I needed my spreadsheets for, but
Okay.
I
Oh.
can put all the light on.
That's what we do.
It makes it hard to see the board, but if we don't, I don't want to bore you with spreadsheets if you don't.
No, I had, my questions were specific line items and things like
Can you send us that spreadsheet, Tom? Can you send us that spreadsheet? I know you did last year. Can you send it to us out of the sure, or send it to me if anybody else wants.
Yeah.
Because I'm reluctant to bring it up, but I read the 8-page MOU with the schools. And it's details, work schedules, and what's provided, cruisers provided for in the MOU, workspace for computer access, things like that, which I get that. But it basically arranges the schedule from buses arriving to buses leaving, and that does leave children, teachers, staff in the school before the bell and after the bell, and significant numbers. So that made me start thinking about the part-time option. Basically looking to cover 9 hours a day. It would require a lot of working, but if we really want to address the issue, if child safety is the issue, then we need to address the entire issue, not just the convenient part of the issue, which is bell to bell. Because you can walk in most schools an hour after the school bus, and there's hundreds of kids in the, there's at least 100 kids in any school, and as many as 200 in the school that my children go to after the buses leave. And that is, and to make matters worse, all these security protocols are no longer in effect. The front door is wide open at 4:05, and there are still 200 students and 100 staff in the building. So that's my issue.
Is that like childcare?
It's childcare, it's clubs, it's tutoring, it's activities, sports, whatever it may be. There's many
Football
activities.
games, basketball games.
Well, those are planned specific events with the public. I'm talking about just the same kids that are there before 4, or and in significant numbers are there after 4. And our current arrangement has some holes. That's my Band-Aid speech. That's what we're doing right now is a Band-Aid unless we address the entire problem, and that's covering one end to the other.
Unfortunately, we're sort of just the funding party. We're not part of the agreement, the MOU, but it's the schools and the sheriff's office. I mean, we have school finance here, but I'm sure they're probably prepared to talk about their, why they open the door at 4 o'clock again. Without the sheriff here to talk about it. I mean, I think you just gotta come up with, if you wanna change, and have longer hours, then you're gonna have to figure out, how to make those work. The deputies work, it's like, you don't know what the shift, Jason, you don't know the shift, it's not 8, it's longer than 8 hours, is it 12? No, it's not, it's 10, what is it?
I don't know, they don't work the same, they work for 175 and 28 days, so I don't know how they break that up, 175.
And just from a payroll perspective, they do incur a lot of overtime.
Yeah, I
The source officers are on a different schedule because they're 5 days a week typically.
Right, but I mean, it's not like the other deputies aren't working longer hours than 8 is what I was, my point. So I think that you could still get, if this was decided they needed to be there, especially in the afternoon longer or something, but that's something I think the schools and the sheriff need to come to the board with. This is, all we got was, I want 4 SROs, not I want to extend the time or what I'm gonna do with
So
it.
the school board only answers two.
The three-legged stool here is schools, sheriff's department, and the public. And we're representing the public in this instance. When I have private conversations with folks regarding school security, and I've had a number in the last month, their eyes are opened in a lot of different ways, and some of them not good ways, but this is one of those items, and you know, it's just not widely known. But if, like I said, if we're going to devote these resources towards it, then I think we need to do a better job filling the hole. So that's, I don't know what other forum besides me saying it is going to start the ball rolling to do that, because it's not the schools. I guess they have a stake in it, but they're not funding it and they're not dictating the MOU. The sheriff's department wants their deputy to be accessible, but doesn't want him. I don't want to speak for them, but then there's the parents, which I'm one of those. But I guess I'm at a loss as how to address the issue.
Since this is a budget for next year, in our twos, this is something we could work on before it came about, before these new people were hired on.
Like the sheriff's office to come.
Yeah, that's the problem, is we don't really have the sheriff's office, and we're saying what we think the sheriff's office can do, and as Clay said, the three-legged stool would be the sheriff's office and the schools here, because they're the one that's got to work out the MOU and the timing, but we're gonna be the ones who have to work out the funding mechanism.
Well, we could decide, or we'll have to decide on a figure for funding, but as far as the MOU, or if it's 4 part-times or 2 full-times, or 1 and 2, could that be negotiated later between the school board and the sheriff and our desires in a meeting?
I think it's the one way we can go.
I mean, we can't hold up the
And
budget.
I would think it would have to be
But I think
before we
it's a
adopt
good
the budget,
point.
though.
Yeah.
You know, I would think it would have to be before we adopt the budget that we have that meeting. Because once we adopt the budget and say, here's X amount of dollars for somebody, we basically lost our negotiating power in that, particular case. And as Clay said, if we're here to represent the parents and the schools and the sheriff's department, we have to be at the table when it's done. And, my point is, and I guess it's a good time to add it, my thought is the sheriff has said he has 2 trained SROs now. And I think we all need, the 3 legs of the stool all need to contribute something. If he gives the schools those 2 deputies now, who have cars and things now, we can add for, a coordinator or some of the folks that are in the schools that are trained law enforcement, and that may cover the whole thing. But until we come together and say, this is what we're gonna do, or this is what we're thinking, we don't have anybody. Now, the sheriff may say, no, I don't like that idea, because now I'm down 2 deputies. But I don't know if we're gonna fund $200,000 for 2 new deputies next year. So there's gotta be a compromise where we all have to give something. Maybe he gives something, the schools give something, and we give something.
Got to Lake Lieutenant.
That's just when he adopts the
We got
tax.
to Lake Lieutenant.
That's just when he adopts the tax.
Tax rate, okay.
Oh, okay.
We have until June 30th to actually adopt the budget by law.
Well, the school
No, we
budget.
gotta do it before that, because the tax bills have to go out.
We set the tax rate
I
before
know,
that.
but they have to give the school their number, because
Right.
technically they're supposed to have their number by May 1st.
The schools need their number to send out contracts, but the law is, we could be just like the state.
Yeah, you could go to June 30th.
We could go to June 30th, we never go to June 30th, but we usually do it in April.
And the resource officers are in our budget, not the school's budget.
Correct. Correct. It was in the school's budget.
Yeah,
We funded it, and then they fought over it, because it was in their budget, and then the sheriff didn't have any say, and it was.
they come.
Why are those, can we, is everyone, we okay with that being a separate line item, or should that go back to his budget?
No, then it gets blurred into his, you can't see it, it's a separate department, so you can see everything that resource officer cost you.
And the thought is, if it were in the sheriff's budget, that there wouldn't be resource officers in the school.
No, they'd probably still be there, but you wouldn't know what it's costing.
Price of debt.
No, maybe.
But there were some personality issues between the previous administration at the schools and I think the sheriff, so.
Which we haven't had that problem since he's been just in this department, because
Yeah.
neither one of them deal with it, it's not, you know.
But how many, let me ask you this question, how many other counties, I mean, I don't say other counties' budgets, but how many other counties have, you know, SROs as, you know, a separate line item in their budget?
I had it in the middle, so I could work that way as well.
Oh, it did? Okay.
That's why I suggested it here, because I was constantly refereeing between the schools and the sheriff over positions for the first couple of years.
And it's working. It's working now. We don't have
Right,
any
you
issues.
see what the costs are. If you blur it back in with just compensation for all the deputies, it's sort of, it's blurred. That's all, it's just really easy to see. If we add two more, if you add one more, it goes right in there, you see what those costs are, you see a running total of those year after year, what they're being paid and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we don't have the sheriff thing, but could I ask a couple questions about the sheriff's budget that I can get to you, Charlie, and maybe you can get it from him? I know the sheriff just recently had knee surgery.
Correct, last week.
So these are real quick, but I didn't get the revenue from the sheriff's elected speed enforcement. He has an expenditure, what it costs, and we have courts and fines as revenue.
Yeah, but it's all, and that's one of those things, probably it's all buried in that revenue.
Yeah, but I'm sure he's got somebody that can pull it out so we'll know what it is.
Curtis will write that down, and we'll try to get that.
Because that's one thing we always had before was we spend $300,000 for selective speed enforcement. What does the county get back from that? And he's got $100,000 in overtime for his budget. Could we add a deputy and that would take the overtime away?
I would like to think it would lower it, it wouldn't take it away.
Well, that's the question I wanted to ask him. Since we were on sheriff, that was the only two I had for sure.
I did find out, the deputies work, regular road deputies work 10-hour days, 4 days a week, you know, four 10s, versus the SROs, which are an 8-hour, 5 days a week position. So that's how they do.
Because of the FLSA, I think they're reported differently in accounting and whatnot. Yeah, I remember that from my financial accounting. Okay.
If the deputies work 8,
SRO take it.
SROs, 8, school's only there 7. One, Reggie?
Seven to 3.
75, 74, 5, before they clear out. Like what you said.
Because they do traffic before.
Yeah,
they're
they're
doing
out.
traffic.
At least 30.
Not the school, wow.
So what is the plan to meet with the 3 of them? Is that what the plan moving forward is, to meet with the 3 of them before we, I mean, the 2 others, the sheriff's department and schools?
I think we could do it, special, so 2x2, a small group with the sheriff. And just ask us about it, public concerns
I
about
think
having
the chair and the
somebody
vice chair
move it
should take that
before.
out as a
Right.
2-1-2.
Yeah.
With the sheriff, correct?
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm good with that.
Okay.
So it'd be a 2-on-3, but we'll have Charlie, so it'd be a 3-on-3.
You get your different place. I'm on those before. We have questions.
Other requests for Mr. Collier's staff as far as finances go?
I got a question, I guess it's on the revenue. Well, I number my own, so it's the personal property taxes.
Page 3.
Yeah, page 3. So what is the reason, I see actual revenue of 5 million, and then county recommends 5.3, and I see adopted budget 4.7. Going from 4.7,
We didn't have actual revenue of 17 when we adopted the 18 budget. The actual revenue that we were looking at when we adopted 18 was 16.
so that number of 5 million is actually 16 revenue?
No. No. You just can't, if you want to look at FY18 adopted budget, you can't look at FY17. That didn't exist when we adopted the 18. Just like I don't know the revenue right now. You
We adopted budget before the fiscal year.
Before that number is right real.
Yeah.
So you got to hide that. It would be helpful if you're going to look at it that way. Hide 17 if you're going to look at why the adopted budget numbers are where they are, and you'll see they're more in line with 16. Because that's what I knew at the time. We had a better personal property, and that's dependent on people buying cars and doing things.
But now that you say this is the actual number
Yeah, we
for
upped it.
17, this is
Yeah,
updated it.
Yeah, updated. You'll see that that's probably our largest revenue growth is in personal property.
But that goes back to to the conservative budgeting process, is you never want to overestimate revenue.
Now, we look, I take and run an Excel formula of averages against all of the ones, the three histories I have, and then I look at the actual that I have at the time I'm working on the budget, which this year is December 30th. November 30th and December 30th are about all the actuals I have. I know better on expenditures, but on revenue. And so, yeah, I kind of look and go, oh, we're not going to make that because we're not, if it's something we should be at 50% at and we're at 40, and I go, uh-oh, that's not good. But, yeah, I basically averaged the 3 years I have good revenue data for. Not on every line item, but on these just to kind of see where they are. And so that's why personal property is up. But yeah, I didn't know that the current year personal property at 5 million, I didn't know that number last year at this point in time.
Same is true with real estate.
Same as real estate's the same way.
So, I mean, let me ask you a follow-up question. So you're expecting a $500,000 growth in personal property?
Yes, from budget year FY18, and the reason I'm expecting that because you look at the actual for 17. And look what that grew, it's almost,
Oh, that's what the 6% above it means?
Yeah, what's that number hanging around? There's a number of 6% above.
That's the
it.
growth.
Is that the growth?
I
Yeah.
don't know, that's not mine.
Your vote is.
It's just a
Just
random
delete
number.
that,
I
don't
can,
worry
yeah,
about
that's
that.
not mine.
It's supposed to be hidden.
I guess my concern, and maybe I shouldn't, is it looks like you had a growth of, maybe I'm seeing this wrong, looks like you had a growth of 200,000, correct? And now you're saying we're gonna have a growth of 500,000?
If you take that 200 and the other 200 and some, yes. If you just average what we've been growing historically.
That 6% is almost the growth point.
It could be. That's in Curtis's spreadsheet.
And it may be,
I don't know.
it may be a 5.9 number that got rounded up. It's only 20,000 difference. This is almost,
It's 250, right?
it's 267,000. Yeah, if you take 6% of 4799, it's almost 5,967. I just think the 6% number was rounded up from 5.9.
That wasn't my
Yeah. I think it is spreadsheet, that's all it was.
I guess my
Yeah, that
concern
is.
is.
It's just what it was, it is what it was from the
Yeah.
actual revenue from 16 to 17.
And I bet if you add a decimal place to that number, it's not 6%, it's probably 5.9.
Yeah, I get it. Just gotta-
Yeah, there you go.
5 cents.
And And that, because it was only 20,000 short, so that's the actual growth from one year to the next year, 5.6%.
So, but then,
That's, I mean, you can take that number lower if you want, I mean, that's what, you know.
I guess my only concern is I don't know if that's a conservative number or not. That seems awful.
It's not super conservative, but we've been doing really good in personal property.
Right.
We've been buying new
But
cars.
his number is 48, 44.
That's
5%.
That's what the county
Yeah, what do you recommend?
recommends is much higher.
I mean,
5%. And we did 5.6 the year before.
Yeah, but if what he's saying is he recommends, and that's his own budget, he recommends another 600,000, but is actually gonna put in the budget another 300,000. So there may be 300,000 more there, but if a lot of people don't buy cars, then that's the buffer to make it safer.
Is everyone okay with that number then?
You're saying the number is 4,848,000, right, for next year?
No, he's saying the number's 5,321,000.
5.321, 5%, there's 5% growth in that. And we did 5.6% between 16 and 17.
Right.
I don't know 18 yet.
Right.
So,
And we've been historically, without changing the rate, growing somewhat in personal property every year. So we had a good jump between 16 and 17. I mean, as of November 30th, we had 2.3 in that same line item. So I don't have the revenue number yet when this spreadsheet was created in November, but for part of taxes that were paid.
so that's really 5%, 4.8% growth.
Yeah.
Between the 4 and 8 and the 5.3.
Well, 5.6 is what should be there instead of 6%. That's the real 6. And now the next number is 4.8. I just did the first 4 digits, but close enough.
So, right.
So it's like some big, smaller number than that.
I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I know Mr. Kelly's conservative, but that seems,
Well, if it comes in, it's just gonna be out of the fund balance, one way or the other. I mean, you either put money in the fund balance, or if you're low on one, you're taking it out of the fund balance.
Yeah, it's just a shift of money that if we raise it, it's a fund balance number. If you lower it, it's a fund balance number.
If you want to lower it, it's like you said, it's going to be more than
Or you gotta cut something to match whatever you lower.
I would just like for it to be as close to right on as we can get.
right.
Yeah.
That's
4.8 is what he's saying.
That's kind of what he's doing. He's used a lower number than what we used before.
And he's not even, he's only 0.8% below what last year was.
Huh?
He's saying it was 10%.
If you take
This is not the thing, that's an
47.99 times 1.06 is going to get you close to 50.67. 5.97. Over what?
Between the 4.7 and the 5.3. That's 10%.
Yeah,
10%. So that's a 10% increase, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
If I subtract 5.3, if you do the percent increase, 5.3, 2.1 minus 4.799, 4.8, and then divide by the 4.798, it's 10.8%.
Wait, say those numbers again?
Take the 5.321,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
went right, and then I'm
Right.
subtracting the 4.799.
But you're saying it's 10% over 3 years now, not 10%.
Yeah, but that's
over
the other
next
thing,
year.
if you just want to do over adopted, we already beat the adopted FY18 with the actual of 17.
Right.
So you're gonna lower yourself back below your actual revenue of 17.
Okay. All right.
I go with the 4.8, I thought that's a reasonable,
Well, his number's 5.3.
yeah, but it's a 4.8.
4.8 number, yeah.
Right, I'm, if you lower it, 4.8 is reasonable.
That's 5.6.
That's fine.
Show me that formula.
5 billion, go with it.
Does it have a formula? Okay.
Yeah.
Do a copy and paste across the board.
I'm sorry.
Just go to that cell. Well, we'll go back down to that cell.
You're investing this much.
No more. Copy yourself for 5.6. Copy yourself for 5.6. Up one.
I see it.
No, that's the wrong one.
Oh, the 5-6 one.
Copy the 5-6 number. Now Control C. Just do Control C. Now move over one row.
Right here.
Right there. Control V. Move over another cell.
Over the.
No, the next cell.
Ooh, that's gonna be,
Control C.
Yeah, that's just.
The next one. Well, one of the numbers.
Oh,
changed.
Control V you want.
Yeah, Control V. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, but see, that's gonna drop in that actual.
So you went from 5.6, then that adopted number went down 5.3. How come the 2.3 is there? That's not what we had.
2.3 is actual on. Sorry.
Yeah, that's not right at all. Okay.
That's right, so you can't use that column, so
So
that's what.
you can delete that number out.
I don't know if that was going back to the
I don't know that you're up 103%, maybe that should be right.
Yeah, see, that one.
One of the cell numbers,
That one's.
one of the cell numbers changed because he's using the one.
Yeah, because that's using the one before, so
Yeah,
that's
but
not.
you could
right.
use that next one, and if you had the right numbers there, that would give you
Yeah.
the increase over each
Yeah,
one.
But there again, you can't look at FY18 adopted with, that's what we're jumping to 19, because we already beat that by $200,000.
And that's
So,
only,
I mean,
5 months.
All right, so,
Correct.
So you have 7/12 to go.
Get a good first half.
If you
and
double
then have a
that
second half.
actual at 11:30, you're already at 4.6.
And what percentage, you said that's 46%?
Now, I'm saying if you double your 11:30 number
Yeah.
of actuals, you're
You're
already
already
at
right.
4.6 million.
Yeah, and well, it really doesn't matter in that sense because I only have 2 tax collections.
Yeah, but
So I
the big
got
one's
tax
always-
collection
the big one's always that December
in
one.
December, which I don't have, and that's gonna be the one that add up to more than half of what we got.
Yeah, December one's gonna be bigger.
Yeah. Because this is the June number
The
that I'm
June
really
number is
counting at.
blank, I don't know what that is, because that hadn't hit yet. But everything, the other thing Beth does.
Yeah, but that's gotta be what I collected, because the June number.
Yeah, this is what the other interesting part, Beth puts everything after the June 5th. Anything that happens after that, somehow, she'd have to explain this, but anyway, because it goes in that current property tax. That's why one's always bigger.
Because that's.
But this one
all-
doesn't have anything that was due, that people came in here from whatever she had posted by the time this spreadsheet was collected on 11/3. On through the 5th, on through the rest of December with all of that stuff, so.
And if you haven't paid your personal property tax, sometimes you can't get tagged. So that's why you have to pay the June number and the December one, which is why it's always bigger.
Yeah, it rolls in there, but you'll see I down, because of the collections, I kind of lowered delinquents a little bit, because we've been doing more on collections, so I don't know that there's as much delinquent out there to grab as there has been in the past.
you put the money in for that third-party collection agency in there.
No, there isn't money, he does that on a percentage on the taxpayer pays that.
So that's not in this budget?
No, they just work. They collect a percentage, so.
No, I'm talking about the money that they collect for us, that's in here.
Yeah, that's it, oh, yeah, what they bring to us, yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay, I had can I ask another question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
It's all right. Sure.
Yeah, I got a question on the personal, the economic development on page 3940. I see that there's a jump in the salaries, in a jump in the overall spending. But what are we doing to, I guess, other contractual services, if you see at the bottom of page 39, it goes from 20 to 60.
We're not mentioning that.
Because it wasn't in that document that you sent me earlier, but he wants to
More
hire.
advertising and
Huh?
more advertising.
I think that's 37.
Unfortunately,
All right,
Mr.
37, 38, well, I know, so I could be. So,
Wilson couldn't be here, so I can only explain parts of this. He wants to hire a firm that will, for help for recruit,
business recruit.
business recruit. Yes, there's a company that has resources And we felt that that was the best use of that money. I think it's 25,000. It's only yearly, but they will bring you a certain number, and if they don't reach the certain number of prospects, then they don't get paid as much. And it's up to a maximum of like 25,000.
So it's like a third-party agency?
Third-party agents that have the contacts
And they've
nationwide.
been vetted as far as,
But
National.
it's a national firm. When, I can't speak to health issues, but anyway, he would have been here to explain that he can't. But we will get him in front of you as soon as he's able. He will not be at tomorrow night's meeting either for your economic development closed work session. Should tell you that there's an issue. I'll tell you in private.
There is a, Mr. Kelly, you probably know this, on the third-party side, we do, in conjunction with the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance, fund some initial property surveys, delineation of wetlands and things like that that come out of, I don't know if it's that line item or
It's
not.
not, but some of, he wants to do some more for business sites, business
ready sites.
Yes, he wants some of the money he wants for that, some of the money he wants for this firm to bring us prospects. So that's the big jumps, and some more for advertising in his budget.
so that's when we talked about spending more on economic development, this is where it's going.
Yes. He can speak to it a lot more intelligently than I can. I've heard it, but I don't know the ins and outs of it. He had full plans of being here, but medical emergency over the weekend.
Oh, I understand.
Can we add that to our closed session tomorrow? Can we add that to our closed session tomorrow?
What's that?
The possible hiring of a third party? I know we have a closed session tomorrow.
We have a closed session, yes, we do on economic development. We'll ask Ben whether that's something, you ever think, I don't know whether we can.
We still
Try it, I don't know what this is.
at some point?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Jeff's got concerns about open session, so.
Yeah, I would just like, I mean, I have seen those used to a great benefit. And,
We will talk to Mr.
This is
Emerson.
fine, I don't know anything about it, it's in our budget.
No, and we plan to talk to you about it tonight, it's
Okay.
just unfortunate circumstances.
Are we still planning on having an economic development thing among ourselves as far as bringing revenue in?
We can't have them among ourselves, as we have, we can't have a closed meeting.
Okay.
But if you don't want to have something, you go back on the emergency.
Okay.
We can do strategic planning in a closed meeting.
I did ask. Another question for Mr. Cully or Mr.?
I have some, but.
Sure.
Chief Loftus. I'm on page 27, and I'm just looking at differences recommended and what we've had for the last couple of years. Work comp insurance is more than doubling. Do we have a claim issue on that side of the fence?
No, in the last, we had a couple of years where we had no insurance increase. And we've been seeing about an 8% increase. We had several claims out there that contributed to that increase. So, and that is on the volunteer side. Regular workers' comp is covered, and insurance is covered through the county. So this doesn't include county employees.
So the fire and rescue budget, that kind of.
That's correct. Workers' comp, well, I mean, in the workers' comp, let me take that back. Which line item are we looking
All
at?
right,
We got a couple different.
page 27. About midway down the page. Start at 60.
What does it say, what is the follow-up?
Workers' comp,
Page
minimum paid
27.
workers' comp insurance, workers' comp line. No,
That from
That's-
2017 to today is.
I know that it's not a cheap profession.
That'll have to defer to finance. Those are numbers that we don't do that, no. So if you go further down, there's volunteer insurance.
Yeah,
That's what I was talking about.
Workers' comp that's up there right under unemployment insurance and all that, that's on paid staff. That's in every department, there's a workers' comp
Right,
insurance.
it's just, this one just jumped off the page at me because of the significant.
$12,000 increase.
Would part of that be due to the salary increase?
No, 2 years ago, it's a $70,000 increase for the staff of what, 35?
Yeah, it was 106, it was 60, it was 79. We adopted 127 and we adopted 140. I mean, we recommended 140.
Okay. I just want to
That's
make sure
based
that we're
on-
not,
that
we're
is
not fighting
based-
with something or.
That is based on claims and experience and all those things.
The volunteer insurance, and I
That is correct.
sent you an email, I haven't had a chance to follow up. I think you've gotten a call from a constituent of mine, or maybe assistant chief did, but,
I have not.
okay. There was some thought going along the disability, the volunteer side of the house of currently paid career staff that are in the area, that a barrier would be the benefits they would have if they were to get hurt and not be able to do their primary job. I understand that firefighting is a physical activity, so a significant injury can put them out of their career job. Have you seen any options, or are there options to supplement that? Does work comp cover for the volunteers to a certain degree, or?
No, there is a supplemental policy we can discuss about purchasing further down the line. We looked at that, I think I communicated that in our email, but it wasn't, what we're paying out and what we could potentially get back per employee per injury didn't make a lot of sense. Our current policy does cover them for some of their salary loss, but not at the rate they're getting in Spotsylvania or Stafford or wherever. So it's fixed on the policy. We are being insured through VFIS, which is Volunteer Firefighters Insurance. It's the second largest insurer. The first largest insurer covers us for our apparatus. So we looked at both of those plans, and we chose the VFIS policy because, again, it covered the biggest spectrum for soft tissue injuries and monetary replacement. So I think I detailed what you get back in that email we talked about, and that is, according to them, because I called them after I talked to you, the Cadillac of the policy. As good as it gets. That is the Cadillac of policies. The downside is the workers' comp policy that does exist is through Baycorp. And I can tell you from my experience with Baycorp, it's not always in the best interest. It's difficult to navigate, you know, I'll leave it back.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, it's a pool. It's a pool trying to save local government money.
And Virginia is a very conservative state on the work comp side, so
That's right.
it is.
So, you mentioned Baycorp and my ears perked up. Our vehicle insurance is covered by Baycorp?
No. If we went with a supplemental volunteer workers' comp policy,
No, the vehicle insurance.
no, it is not through Baycorp.
Is it? Ours is.
Who's yours through? And the reason I asked and my ears perked up is we've had sheriff vehicles get totaled,
Okay.
and we probably got 50% of their value. So a $600,000 fire truck, tell me I'm gonna get more than.
You're gonna get more than that. Our policy is through a company called ESEP, and that we farm out. That covers the majority of our fleet, the majority. If it's a county-owned vehicle, like my little Explorer, that's under the vehicle policy.
Yeah, that I'm not worried about.
But all the rest of the stuff is under that ESEP policy, and that gets evaluated once every 2 years.
Stated value insurance?
You're speaking
Yeah.
at a level, we could sit down and talk about that, but it's supposedly replacement value on the apparatus.
Yeah, okay. That's the same thing, because in cars, if you have a car that's an old car and you think it's worth $100,000, you get stated value insurance. They would pay you, not that I got a car like that, but that's what I want to make sure that.
And I can look at particulars, I'm not the best insurance guy.
I'm not an insurance guy either. I just want to make sure we don't lose a fire truck and be $300,000 or $400,000 in the hole.
That's correct. And I can tell
Still
you,
paying for it.
I can tell you a couple of
Yeah,
examples.
while I'm still paying for it, then I got to buy a new one.
We left the fire truck out with water in the pump in the winter a couple of years ago. The pump froze, fractured the pump, fractured the tank. That was all covered. So that's pretty good coverage for us. All our tow bills are covered, all our glass coverage is covered through them as well. And we have a lot of tow bills.
That's very good to hear.
Hence the insurance, the vehicle repairs line.
Yes, sir.
We thought of buying
Last
a
question,
truck.
the Carolina Alert System,
Yes.
does that appear to be funded, that's not paid for it, or is it still going on?
Yes, we have pulled it from the line item budget, and now it is being funded directly from a grant from VDEM and Dominion Power. And that was done for reporting purposes on that end. So all that money is for that.
While you're up, the 3 proposed firefighters, you laid out for us.
Yeah, desperately need them. Last year, when we came to the board and we talked about the new hirings for Bowling Green and Ladysmith to go 24 hours, there was some compromise made in there. We hired an additional set of folks. We hired the very minimum to make that work. A couple of years ago, this board voted for some backfill employees. We used those backfill employees to make that 24-hour schedule work at both stations. So essentially today, I have 11 people working on each shift, A, B, and C. But when anyone takes a day off, I have to reach outside into either volunteer coverage, part-time coverage, or overtime coverage. Or the last piece is mandatory hold. And right now, our part-time pool is down. The volunteer coverage 24 hours is difficult, especially on the ALS side, Advanced Life Support side. And so far this 6-month period since we've gone 24 hours from September 1 to today, we've had 28 days of mandatory hold. That means if you think you're getting off after your 24-hour shift, the captain comes to you and says, I can't find anybody else to fill your slot, you're staying at work until I can find someone. So we're going through a hard time here with morale. That's a morale killer. We still use not mandatory, but regular overtime if somebody wants to fill it. We'll use overtime as a means of doing that as well. The backfill positions wouldn't add to our complement. They would just fill that leave slot that happens every single day. So 11 people per shift, if we do the math, we're about 1.4 people off per day. Some days it's 2, some days it's 3. But that's why we need those positions. They will subsequently reduce overtime by a percentage, certainly reduce that mandatory hold. But our part-time pool that we're using to backfill is drying up. It is difficult to find part-time people that want to come in and work a 24-hour shift. If you're working in Spotsy and you have all the skill set, you want to come here and work 24 hours as well.
Is that a scheduling issue, or?
We'll break the schedule up. We'll go 12 and 12.
Right.
You know, we'll try to make it work with whatever we've got. But it's harder and harder to find folks.
And that's just with 2 people on the truck, right?
That's just with 2 people on the truck.
We're not trying to do 3.
Yeah, we're not adding to the complement. In the past, I've asked you for battalion chiefs, and that's a huge piece for me, that leadership piece. I had to take that off the table because this is the priority right now, is trying to get, it's hard to say, hey, your kid's got a thing tomorrow night, you're staying for another 24 hours. And that's happening a fair amount. When that does, people begin to look elsewhere.
That's 3 medic units with 2 each, that's 2 fire units with 2 each, and then that's 10. Get me to 11.
And then during the daytime, we have the captain that floats. He comes back at night to the station. So you have one on the truck. So there are some days when that captain 12 hours can offset some overtime need. Certainly.
How does the 2 from the MOU with Northern Carolina affect the pool?
Makes it worse.
Good or bad?
Makes it worse. Now here's the thing. It sounds like it's a good idea, but we hired 2 people. We're going to hire 2 part-time people to fill in the days that they're not working. I still got to hire more part-time people to fill in the days when they call out sick, annual leave, military leave, etc. So now I got to call in more part-time people to fill in. Since there's a contract there, it's difficult for me to say, well, I'm going to close down Upper Carolina today and use these guys down here. I don't want to do that, nor do I want to take folks out of places like Frog Level to move them up to Bowling Green to cover.
Would you ever just put 1 there as a drive? Or is that part of the plan? Part of the strategy that we've spoken about?
Right, there's a couple ways to do that. We can put them down to 1, but 1 person really can't respond. We're going to have somebody else coming, another 2 people coming from somewhere else. So for me, from an efficiency model, not a really good idea. I'm going to try to meet that minimum staffing. What we need to look at down the road is we've got to have, in order to meet minimum staffing, I got to have a couple extra people when they're off. It's not like a day job, 40 hours a week. If my secretary's off, she's off, we can make do for a couple days or whatever. But when they're working 24-hour shift and you need to have 2 people on that ambulance, that's continuous trying to put a body in there. And unfortunately, it's not just anybody. The people that are making the most money in overtime are the people we pay the most, that ALS life support provider, advanced life support provider. So it's hard to find those.
It'd be great if a school in the county would have a program for that.
It would be outstanding. It's outstanding. And just another little piece of legislation, statewide and federally, we're losing our intermediate level provider. So you will no longer have an intermediate. So you will go from an EMTB to basic life support, 2-year college degree, to a paramedic. So we will be sending folks, just as we do now.
That was new legislation this year.
They cut it out. They cut the intermediate program out in the state of Virginia.
This year.
This year. So the last classes are occurring now. There will not be an exam for the intermediates after this. Any intermediate that we do have can continue to practice until they're.
What legislation did that? Can you send that to us?
Yes, it was through the Office of EMS.
Is this like
So it's-
EMT, cardiac tech, paramedic? Is this the cardiac tech that's going away?
Yeah. They changed cardiac tech to intermediate.
It's a regulation, it's not,
Regulation.
Regulation.
so it's not legislation.
No, legislature didn't do it. It can be reversed by legislation.
Well, that's my point. I mean,
I don't
It
believe
could
the
also be
state, the
reversed
state
by
is following the
regulation.
national model. The national
Oh.
model is doing away with the intermediate across the country. Virginia is one of the last states that is following suit. When it is going, and all the fire chiefs, we're trying to push for something, but there is no intermediate step. And it's hard to educate somebody for 2 years, keep them employed with you. Yes, you can have an educational contract, yes, you'll have to work for me if I pay for that. But
it's
we're
too
gonna suffer.
long. It's 2 years is too long to wait.
The reality is, yes, it is too long to wait, but those paramedics that are trained are gonna be sucked up by the larger localities. So, we're partnering with Spotsylvania to have a class in Spotsylvania that we can send our folks to. And we're paying people to go to class under a contract, you will complete this, and you will work for the county for X number of years to pay that, essentially a debt off. But not to cloud the issue here, but that's just one of those other things that we're facing.
It's good to know that how bleak the future is.
Right. And so we will be running more and more BLS trucks. And chances are we'll put BLS ambulance crews on the crews, an ALS provider in the chase vehicle. They'll go there, assess the patient, if it can be transported to BLS, then they'll go back on the street. So that's the only way we can be using that rendezvous concept.
More of the calls about you sent the wrong crew.
Yes, sir.
Huh?
But,
I mean,
just let me finish, those backfills are critical for us to.
We don't
I'm
have,
not happy about the legislation, the regulation.
Go hear his last part there. Go hear his last
What's
part.
what?
The backfill positions are critical for us.
we don't,
Oh, we already said yes.
Oh, thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, I've got one, if you don't mind, Madam Chairman. What's up with the incentive program? That's my baby.
I understand that, sir. It's on the street,
Mr. Park.
limited participation. You get the reports each month.
Sometimes, but, okay.
We haven't put out as much money as we thought we would be. We're not getting the return back on volunteer staffing hours that program was designed to help.
Is it worse than it was before? Under the old one? Or was
No, we're about the same. We're about 20, I think at the end of this fiscal year, we'll be at about 25,000 volunteer man hours, which is where we were about last year. We needed to be somewhere in the 50 to meet our demand.
Why is it that you have, like, for example, some stations like Sparta, your volunteership went up, correct?
The volunteering numbers can go up, yep, up or
So
down.
why is that number, is it the volunteers? I guess I'm just kind of curious why they would.
I think there's a couple things. One, I think a fair amount of people decline it. I can tell you this, all of Ladysmith Rescue has chosen to decline any compensation. The entire department.
All three of them?
Entire department. They have more than 3 on the rolls.
Everybody at Ladysmith declined the incentive program?
Yes. So, part of it is, some folks just don't want to fill out the paperwork.
there's
Yeah,
number
There's,
one.
right, I have trouble getting people to fill out a run sheet,
Right.
let alone fill out, essentially a timesheet to be compensated. So, the run sheets are mandatory, you're supposed to do that, and struggle to get people to do that on the fire side, not so much on the EMS side. So that timesheet is an issue.
Let me ask you a question. If there was someone that, if the timesheet was easier or someone filled it out for them, would they want it?
Who are we gonna get to fill it out for them?
I'm just.
I can't answer for all of them. We are advocating the program. I mean, it is a good program, you can be compensated well. There are some people that are taking advantage of it. A couple people in Ladysmith Fire are the ones leading the pack on it.
I thought you said in Ladysmith Fire?
Ladysmith Fire.
Ladysmith Rescue.
Ladysmith Rescue told, is the one that did not
Did not want to participate at all.
Ladysmith Fire is.
Ladysmith Fire is, and it's up to the individual, some are, but they're leading the pack on the people that do.
I guess my only concern is we started with 180. Didn't last year we start with 180 on this, in this? 250. I mean, we started with this huge number, and then we compromised. See, Mr. Hooker, we compromised. And we ended up hiring 3 extra ones, right?
Correct.
And so we said, oh, the number will be 90 rather than whatever it was gonna be.
250 or whatever.
250. Okay, now we're cutting it again to 45.
Only because we don't.
We're not gonna spend 45. I mean,
If we
that's
hit
probably
45, anybody have any problem with making it 55?
No, if we hit it, that's
We're not gonna, I don't think we're gonna hit 45 this year. What do you think, we're gonna hit 30? You think we'll hit 30? No, I don't think we're gonna hit 30. So 45, I left some room in there for next year for it to grow.
So you're saying if it does hit that number, then we will add to it?
Yeah, we would come back to the board if we saw that there was,
Right. Right.
We would hope they hit that number.
Yeah, I mean, if we're spending that's a good thing.
Right.
And I'll bring it back to you saying, hey.
Is there any way that you can simplify the process for them?
Part of that compromise was some different pay rates for overnight hours, because that's where we're struggling. Some pay for administrative function, if you're doing some administrative work, tabulating all of this stuff. I will certainly sit down with anybody who thinks we can make it easier. We're using a bunch of technology, we're already using the scheduling program to pull your hours, the call sheets.
What is the program?
We got an app for the schedule, yes. Yes. Not for the call sheets, you gotta sit down and fill that out. Put your name on the card, that's kicker.
No, I was just, okay.
I would be happy to look at any way to make it easier, but there is some complexities built into how much we pay, when we pay. We did pay people at Port Royal a different rate of pay when we used them as a shelter.
right.
And so that was a success. We had volunteers there, and they did participate in that higher rate of compensation because of the disaster.
So even for the windstorm, the volunteers that worked, I mean, because I know a bunch of them worked 24 hours or more, they still didn't turn in time for that?
Some do, some don't. So, and again, we're promoting as best we can. We have a YouTube video, how to go about the process, explaining the program, so people don't have to sit there and try to read through the policy. It's being talked to, it's, visually stimulating. But there is that, you gotta fill out the timesheet.
When there's, just let me ask you a question. When there's say there's a call right now, anytime there's a call, and then it's company 2 that goes out, don't you know who's on that particular call?
The only way I know who's on that call, is you fill out that run sheet. I know who's at the station, if you filled out the shift, if you're on shift that day. But if you don't go back to the station and go on the run sheet and say, I was on engine 2, then I'm not gonna know you were on engine 2.
Because 5 of us were at the station and you don't know which 2 went out.
That's right. And so all of our calls, even before the stipend program, have a run sheet. Beforehand did run sheets. EMS has run sheets. Tell me who's on the truck, what truck you were on, and the basics, what happened, right? Car fire, put it out, came back, etc.
Okay.
That's how we determine who went on the call.
If there's a way that we could, I mean, and I don't want to make your life more difficult, but if there's a way that we could figure out to maybe simplify it and promote it again and see what happens.
I'll put some feelers out there for some people to sit down and look at it.
Okay.
On the timesheet
All right.
process.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
And Chief, before you go, did you know that Carolina law changed? We did publicize the fact that we had to all re-sign up.
Yeah, we did.
We did?
We did. We put it out on the old Carolina web.
I had
All
This one's a lot better.
The old company, the old company was bought out, weren't they?
Yeah, the company was bought out.
We had a switch company.
Thank you.
Another question? Anybody else?
Yes.
Hold on, I just-
Mr. Kelly?
Yes, sir.
On the, I want to go to the total school funds for a second. That was another question I had. Well, I don't, I have 14 by number.
He didn't change the page.
Yeah, I didn't change. So,
I marked it the whole page,
yeah.
and I didn't get that.
right, so it says if you go down to school funds revenue detail,
I'll have to wait until.
14.
14, it goes from 42 to 45. What's the reason for that?
Revenue.
Yeah.
That's careful. Total school fund.
Total school funds at the very bottom, that's including everything. So that includes all the funds.
Why is budget?
Yeah, what's the reason it goes from, yeah, I mean, it's the
Actual 216?
actual 2017 to adopted budget. 42 to 40.
That's, the actual revenue for 17 is the revenue that wasn't the budget. We'd have to go back and look at what the budget number was.
Are you looking at the 18 adopted budget?
The 18 adopted budget was 45,502, 533.
Right. He wants to know why it's a $3 million, or why it's,
Yeah.
Over what?
over the actual 217 budget.
That's just the revenue. That's not the budget.
Right, that's right.
That's food service and all.
It's just revenue. I have to go back and tell you what the actual adopted budget was for that. You want to see that number, the budget number?
Right, but I'm saying, there's still some sort of jump here, isn't there? I mean, there's still a significant jump.
Transfers from general. It goes all the way across.
I mean, everything else is kind of consistent.
42 degrees.
We'll go ahead and carry this.
Yeah, but it is, but it is.
Doesn't matter if it's been-
That's how appears that food services in this jump, because it comes in.
The jumps in food service, there's a jump in total state revenue of almost $1 million between actual revenues in 17 and adopted budget for 18.
Adopted budget 17 was 44,369,028.
So they went from, and the adopted was, yeah,
Adopted was 44,369,028, and then we recommended last year 45,367,530 at public hearing. It was up a little bit because y'all added some money to that. So I could find another spreadsheet to find, but 18, but 17.
I just wanted to just,
While we're there a second, did the schools get about 500,000 last year for just a VRS adjustment?
400,000.
And that was one time, they only had to spend that one time, but it's still in their budget, is that correct?
500.
But it's 400,000 additional state money.
They're here could probably explain to VRS, did your rates go down this year, or?
For 19, they are dropping. They went up significantly for 18.
Correct, and that was the 400 that was included. So there is some savings in their budget for VRS.
And it's the full 400,000?
I
No,
can't
Now,
answer that.
like 100, we calculated about 149, 150,000, something like that savings. The rate went from, I think it was like 20.5 to 20.3. It was a small percentage decrease, but that small percentage adds up when you're talking about millions of dollars.
Mr. Cully, can you give me that actual 17 again, for the doc? 44 what, because I just wanna,
44,369,028.
all right, thank you. Okay, I was just
No problem.
curious. I just saw that was a huge disparity, that's why I was
But you're not going from budget, then you're just going from our actual revenue, just like if you were looking at expenditures, the total expenditures for any year would be underneath of the adopted
Okay.
budget. Hopefully,
Thank you.
unless we overspent.
I'm on page 15.
Okay.
It's the very next page, it's water utility.
Yeah, that's probably not where I am. In the actual utility fund,
Under fees.
under revenue on utilities.
Correct.
Okay. And then what page did you say, 15?
15.
All right.
This is all with the increase in rates, 3%. What was detailed out in the paper was a little bit more detailed than what it said. There was today's freelance, 3% of water and sewer, and then there were capital fees.
Or is it just,
That's different. Service district fees will be, that's all clumped into a special account, because that can't be used system-wide. All right, utilities.
What are we at for connections current fiscal year?
That's one thing, we got a pretty good year this year.
Mr. Sheehan.
I'm looking right now, so I can
I don't know if you heard me.
This is the wall we're gonna hit, because this is a 500,000 increase in,
38 on water and 34 on sewer.
All right.
Our year ends July. I mean, we budget 42.
Still should be plenty of room to go over, right?
yeah, but the real concern is that next year,
Yeah, next year.
because there aren't the lots available to do
Wait,
that.
the bills got built out.
there are approved lots, it's just.
And that's where our big hole in utility debt's gonna come from the general fund that I was talking about last week is, that's gonna step up $400,000 or $500,000.
Well, we've got lots approved, it's just not developing.
Well, we've got tons of proof that they're not gonna spend the money to open up those areas because of the water, sewer, and roads they've gotta put in to do
I think
it.
this is level. What do you think? You know, the revenue was level, it's not half 3%.
Now, that was level. We didn't include, it was included in your presentation, but it wasn't included in the actual numbers.
Is the Dawn system and the other service authorities within the system going up the same percentage?
We'll talk to y'all about
Yeah,
that.
we're working with Mr. Rogers with that still and trying to figure out what those finite numbers are, because we want to make sure that the Dawn system's covering all of its expenses. So that number's going up, but I don't have those numbers from Mr. Rogers yet.
Okay.
So we're going to bring that back to the board. We discussed maybe.
But we're looking at them all, that's what I'm
Yes,
saying,
sir.
it's just not,
Correct.
because they're both hemorrhaging money.
Other questions for us?
I guess.
That's okay, I was just giving anybody else a chance to chime in. Mr. Moran?
Yeah, that's the way to go with, because there's no connection.
I mean, it's a split.
Right for me.
Electric bills, that's where I'm going.
We're gonna,
Oh, that's a joke. You already asked, but let us know.
that's a fund that's coming.
But I mean, it's a fundamental.
Mr. Sheehan, will we have not had a hazardous material burn-in day, is that what the 30K is?
Right.
Some of that, it's $10,000 per we're estimating $10,000 per cleanup, so it'd be $20,000 to do the two of them.
Where's this at, where are we at? Clay?
I'm on page 32 as a new line item, household hazardous material collection, recycling, whatever we call it. That's where if you have a hand grenade in the attic, you go bring it in.
Can I just throw it to my bird call or balloon?
No, it could be a DDT in your shed.
With the DDT in your shed, exactly. Electric bills. You guys spoke briefly about that.
Right.
When do we just start seeing our savings?
Hey, when does the performance contract start?
It actually just started. So they just finished up, this month, we just signed off on everything. We're getting ready to have a meeting with them to really discuss from this point moving forward. So we've got our year just started, so after that, we're starting to see some savings, but to actually give a finite amount, you know, with it being so cold in January, the electric bills went up some because of that. So unfortunately, history is gonna have to help us dictate of what it's going to be. We didn't know how much to cut out of the budgets to save for that until we start seeing realistic numbers.
We don't know how hot it'll be this summer.
Charlie, we should look at some of the
But we look at, I mean, looking at this, we pretty darn near flat funded.
debt payments.
We'll drop some.
Went down some. $1 cord, 6,000.
Saw it somewhere. Where are we on bonds? Where we manage here at?
30, page 30.
The electric, page 33 of the new handout, just talking about the electric bills. We can squeeze anything out of there.
Anyway, the reason for the question is that we signed off on a $3 million performance, energy performance contract.
But they just got the equipment installed and.
So we don't start until July anyway, right?
We gotta pay the
As
debt.
far as, we got paid it to start paying the debt in July or pay now.
That's a quarter question.
We were sold on this, that
Yeah, it's what,
the savings are gonna pay for the
yeah,
debt.
they've gotta show us that our light bill, and they gotta prove that to us and the state.
But I think we account for debt service and we account for almost like 95% of electric bills, so like there's money there somewhere.
Well, it's water, sewer, also fuel, so we're saving on propane, we're saving on diesel fuel, electricity, water, sewer, so it's kind of a combination of a bunch of different line items.
So this time next year, will we have a pretty good feel
Yes.
for it?
We will have a
Yes.
good idea where we're at. And then,
Maybe that can be a separate report.
yeah, they'll do an actual analysis at the end, it'll be part of that the board will be able to see how much is saved, and then if they owe us a check at the end of how much they owed us because we didn't meet the savings.
So it's premature to cut too much?
Yeah, that's what we're worried about.
That was what we were worried, we weren't sure how much, so I mean, and some of the bills, if I'm looking here, I mean, I could see Ladysmith Library, we went from 12.5 to 10. The Visitor Center, we went from 17 to 15.5. Social Services, we went from 27.6 to 23, so, I mean, we cut it some, but we didn't know, we got no idea where to cut.
So, yes.
8,000.
You'll have a better idea next year once you get the actuals.
Correct. Because they just got this stuff, and they're just, finishing up.
All right, just hoping they use that money, that's all. But,
Well, they don't have to use it, they pay the debt with it.
True, but right now we're paying debt in the budget and we're paying the electric bill in the budget.
Correct.
One of them should go down.
Right, the electric bill should go down. Well, next year, when we budget the year, we should see that savings to be able to put it somewhere else, but it's hard to go down that whole amount and not know exactly
Yeah, okay.
where.
I'll just be disappointed.
Hope not.
Oh, that's a Floyd one.
Yes.
Can we just discuss the school funding
Okay.
very quickly?
Which page you would be on?
Oh, just start at page 1 for one.
Start at the beginning.
Mr. Cully's recommended $350 from the previous year, and one of my questions was, yeah, they're still asking for additional funding. Is it possible to maybe back off one of the replacement buses and maybe move some of that funding toward that, to them? without having, additional encroachment up on this budget. I think he's done a pretty good job. I'm just looking at the big numbers. I haven't gotten into the smaller numbers, but, yeah, I think Mr. Cully indicated they're on a 5-year replacement for all buses. And, no, it's 5, there's 90 buses.
No, it's 5 buses a
Five-
year. I don't know how
buses.
they roll over to replace the whole fleet.
Right. But it would be nice if they could, I know I'm gonna say something nasty, but miss a year and come back and push it out further. Right. But just trying to get to the point we can make everybody halfway happy.
Well, I would propose that if we could not purchase an additional one this year, just finance it like we did last year, then your only increase is just a little bit of debt service, and you'll be buying 3 and financing 2. I was just working from way back, marching down, buying an additional bus each year to where eventually we're just buying 5, and the only increase in the budget is whatever 2% buses go up a year in overall cost would be your cost. I mean, you could delay that by a year by not buying one this year, just buying the same 3 over and then finance 2.
But how much?
That would take about
does that
90,000, depending on the finance. You probably,
Yeah, just ballpark.
well, you have at least 75,000 more you would have, probably.
I like when you went from 99 to 75.
Well, I don't want to quote too, that you have that money.
But
I just don't think that's it.
But the balance is, we save money now, and we have money right now, and the financing costs us more in the long run, but that's 5 or 7 years.
What's the rate?
Isn't that VRS money, like 3%?
No, municipal.
Municipal lease.
I think the rate was anywhere from 4 to 5%.
And wage just went up to that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a plan, that we've been following to try to get this reoccurring capital paid for with cash instead of having to lease it. Because the other things we obviously lease in are non-patrol cars. And then every other year, a trash truck. I was just marching our way to where these things that we wear out on a regular basis, we're just paying for them and not having all this money going into the lease. Obviously, if you build a building, you're gonna have to finance it, but if we could get, and when you buy a fire truck, you're probably gonna have to finance it because it's so expensive, but if we could get these
Well, since we're
smaller
there-
things knocked out, is what we were trying to do.
Since we're there, Mr. Black and I were talking at lunch for dinner about $50,000 for computers. But it says 50,000 for staff
Yeah,
computers.
those are not for the,
That's not student
that is
computers.
not student computers. Y'all will be able to explain, because they asked for more than that, and that's all I had to do. But those are like the teacher computers in the classrooms. It's like classroom technology, not student technology. I
Can
thought.
somebody just tell us what the number of computers you want to buy? How many you want to buy for $50,000?
Wade he has a replacement cycle. I don't know how many he will buy with the amount that Mr. Cully's proposing to fund, but his replacement cycle is just that we only keep them for a few years because they actually get dated and they start to deteriorate. So that's just it, kind of like with buses. That's just a replacement cycle for classroom technology. So whatever the dollar amount that Mr. Cully proposed, he would buy just as many computers he could buy with that actual dollar amount. That's normally our annual, what Mr. Murray is proposing is an annual replacement cycle that's more in line with maybe 199,000 for staff computers. But
Now,
we'll take
99,000, that's what you asked for.
99,000 is what he has in the budget as the budget line item.
yeah.
I can give you the actual amount of computers he's talking about replacing every year with that dollar amount.
Now, that's not really, I mean, it's not a really big ticket number, but the reality is, yesterday was Sunday, I looked in the Best Buy ad, you can buy a computer for $400. So if we're buying 1,000 computers or 100 computers every year, that's a lot of computers for the staff. I don't know if you're on a state contract or not, but And if that's the case, we ought to have a computer technology class where we're building our own for $150. But that's not,
I'll text him and find out what exactly, how many he's replacing.
I mean,
Is
just,
there a number?
we at the point where every penny counts. That's
Right.
just, we're just really talking about a penny,
What do you propose, Charlie, 50?
but
50 is what I.
$50,000, I don't know, I mean, if $400, $300, you can get a lot of computers for a couple $100 now, with the state contract at this point.
There's definitely something that is, however, I mean, again, there's definitely something that as a teacher, you definitely need.
I will.
So, I mean, it's definitely a need for the staff, I mean, as far as.
Yeah, and nobody disagrees with that, but I've had my computer for
Right.
3 years, the same one, so it's, and as long as we're using computers like we are, which is really dumb terminals, I don't need to have any bells and whistles, I don't have a disk drive or anything else, so I was just wondering the number, and the other thing, I guess we'll let them get off the phone, is we need to know what the number is on reversion funds.
I don't think if they're working together to try to figure that out.
Still working on that number.
Well, see, if we know the ballpark, and then, you know, we as a board have to decide whether we're gonna say, you can use the reversion funds to fill the gap in teacher pay raises.
You can't use it. It's one time.
That's what I'm saying, we have to have that discussion, you know, you say yes, or you say no, I might say yes, and somebody else might say yes or no.
500, at 50,000, how many would that be?
So we don't even have a ball.
So you're saying 88 computers?
Yeah.
So I have to have. You're $1 million short, right?
Are you
We're getting money from the number.
What is the
Yeah.
We hope you can
Okay.
do better, better,
110.
than your
What I'm saying.
predecessor did.
110. Do you need to replace 110 per year?
You'll get them all straightened out, I'm sure.
How many teachers do we have?
You got a good instructor.
50,000 is what you're talking about,
Pass the reins over well.
No, but you, is it 200? Almost
60 or 55 staff computers.
55 to 60.
Okay, how old are those
55 to
computers before you replace them?
To replace.
Okay,
With 50 grand.
My math is kind of bad, but if you got 50, that'll be $1,000 a piece. I want that contract.
6 or 7 years old before replacement. So that's getting.
Oh, I definitely want that contract. I don't have to do anything with all that stuff every day. Good $300 computer, so that's 4,000. Yeah, I got to be
A little
because.
tiny bit of RAM and a little tiny.
No, they're terrifying.
What did we just out of curiosity? when you were
So after
replacing
3 years, you
computers,
can't replace parts on the one.
How much that's Davis how,
Okay.
I mean, you know, obviously more for laptops than you are
Thank
desk
you, thank you.
computers, but.
Just after 3 years, his service, his maintenance cycle, he can't replace parts on the computers after the third 3 years. They keep them for about 6 to 7 years before they replace them. So that's why he has a simple replacement. And I think he probably has it in there every year right now because we were so far behind. So we have been buying staff computers every year out of our reversion funds and those things to try to get it. So cutting that dollar amount, I don't think will be a big issue. I think we made some inroads with replacements, but he's at that point when once they get 6 years old, he can't. If they break it, they break it.
It's a long time.
It's really not much you can do about that.
Computers only.
but, okay, here's Dell computers for $500, Lenovo's for $400, Samsung's for $500. So it seems like you're buying computers for $1,000. I think we need to look at that contract. Nobody's saying anything's wrong with that, but just look at that contract.
Yeah, I know normally he does go back and look at procurement contracts and get the best price for the best product that he can purchase. So I agree. I think we could probably get that cost down per computer, but right now he's looking at a replacement cycle of about 67 years.
Okay. The other thing we asked while you stepped out is, if we were close to a reversion number, because we're gonna have a heated debate about using what funds you have left instead of for capital for operating costs, so.
Okay.
I know you and Curtis were trying to get together and.
Yes, we've been in communication with Mr. Finney, and hopefully we'll get to some figures as far as the reversion funds for FY17, as well as the deferred spending accounts for on the county side.
Dr. Parker, what was the, I just want to go over this just so that way my numbers, what was the total cost that you needed for if we were to do the salary increase from your compensation study over 3 years, it was $600,000 a year, is that correct?
Roughly about $650 per year. That number is their final report. They bumped the number up a little bit, just basically because once they started developing scales, we had to disaggregate some of our employee groups. So ballpark figure is about $650 $650 times 3.
And okay, and what was the cost of, you had VRS was going up this year? I mean, not VRS, but health insurance.
Health insurance, the health insurance, total health insurance increase. But the total amount was the total. In the budget, we put 400 at 13%, but we were compensating with using Anthem money to compensate for the cost. So the total increase is 13%, 13% increase in healthcare, and I want to say that was in the 600 range for the total increase. And the proposed budget that we presented to the county is $400,000, and we anticipated using spending the remaining cost out of Anthem as
What do you got left at the end?
Total dollars, right now we have 200 sitting that was not appropriated at our last request. We also have, was it 360? Okay. So 360 was, but it was 200 that we wanted to divert into the health insurance, right? So that was the total amount there in that. And then the other Anthem that you have is still in the construction contingency. You have dollars there as well. And I don't have the actual amount in the deferred spending account on the county side.
So we're looking for, so the total, we don't have the total of the three
of those accounts. I know 200,000 was set aside for using for this purpose.
Yeah,
Is
is
there-
out of the last check you got.
Right.
But we already had $1 million we were kind of holding on to one time in
For the Anthem, for the construction contingency.
construction, so what was left in
And
that?
that project, we'll probably have about 400 left in that project when that comes through.
So it's about 600 and change.
So we got 600 and change. I mean, I'm just curious now as far as, so the health insurance is going up 400,000. Is there any plan for the employees to take on some of that or no?
We've looked at, yes, sir, we've looked at in bumping up the employee share. We didn't want to change the plans that they have because that would drastically impact families. But we wanted to change the percentage. And part of the plan would be to change part of the percentage on the employer share and employee share. We also didn't want to pass on too much cost to employees.
I understand.
Until we know what the final budget situation was like, because it's hard to jack up their health care and not give them any.
So that 400,000 increase will be recurring, right, as far as the?
No, well, the 13% spike is primarily due to claims, a bad claim year. So next year.
So that's a one-time cost?
It could be a one-time year, it could be a similar situation next year, we really don't know. Just give you an example, 2 years ago, I think healthcare was cut like 130,000, correct? So we've had, and then last year was even. So it's a movement. We haven't, this is just the first year we've had a bad claims year that has really jacked up our healthcare costs.
So we have at least some money that's left over there to possibly cover that the health part of it, 400,000 for health, right? A bridge. We have, yeah. Well, because that's one time.
One time, I mean,
Well, he said it's roughly around 600,000, and Dr. Parker said the health cost is 400. So there's 600, roughly, Charlie just said it's roughly 600,000.
Based on what he just said.
Based on what he just
well,
said.
those are unreconciled numbers. We gotta get those reconciled.
Yeah, reconcile. And keep in mind in that construction contingency account, that part of those revenues are going to be used for that energy management program. So you could
I'm sorry, that's
part of those dollars in that construction contingency, once those monies become available, will be used for part of the energy management contract that we're working on.
Okay, efficiency then. Dr. Parker, I know when we had our work session on your positions, new positions, there were 2 or 3 that were mandatory by the state. One was your advanced English teacher, one was the nursing instructor.
Yes.
What was the third one? Or was it just the 2 that were the mandatory?
Definitely the nursing instructor, advanced English, because the class size is.
I mean, I know you'd like them all, but that's not
Yes, I
happening,
do.
so give me the ones you gotta have.
Yeah, those are 2.
We
Right.
really do a good one.
Okay, I was just thinking there was a third one, okay.
I mean, I guess the big thing for the board that we need to figure out is, do we wanna cover the cost of the salary study? I mean, not the, but the.
Insurance, health insurance.
No, the health insurance is a different thing, we've got that, I mean, that's the health insurance is the 400,000, I'm talking about the salaries, the 600,000 it's gonna take for the 3 years.
That's the point, and it would be 1.8 if it was all at once, but I think.
We can't do it.
Yeah, we all know we can't do that, but we can make an effort, and the school board can see if we can get them to the 650 number. We're at least moving them towards that. We're making a commitment to all the school employees, and again, we're saying even in tough revenue times, we're making an extra effort to get them money. So there are ways to get there.
What do you do if you don't have it next year?
With Dr. Parker, you mind coming closer?
We like the electric.
Only because I've heard it, you've heard me say it
Yes, sir.
and write it. If our numbers, our revenues go down, I know you have to prepare for it, just where do cuts come from next year? If we were to put a big chunk into the transfers and we had to pull back next year.
Well, I know from our standpoint, we have, I think I sent you an email today that showed, in some areas, in order to accomplish some of the things that were on our budget priority list that we felt we couldn't wait on. They were either strong instructional needs or staffing needs. We took the funding that was provided. We used the funding, I think, and I should have sent that email to the full board, because I hope it explained exactly how we
I
spent
don't
the
know, but I
money
got
over the past.
lost in with all the teacher emails.
I'm sorry. But it kind of, nice day, nice place for that. It showed where all of the funds have been spent over the last few years and where we've cut the budget to accomplish some of the things that we needed to do. So we've gotten kind of smaller and across the board and across some of our other areas in order to accomplish some additional staff and other things of that nature. So to answer your question, I would say if we did work on compensation this year, I think the best thing that I can say is we still need to continue to look at a school and county solution to this problem, because it's not just going to be always new revenue, as you folks have told us. We're going to have to continue to work on our line items. I think in the summary I gave to Mr. Forehand earlier today, I mentioned when we have extended revenue, I know it's one-time money, but maybe we can have an agreement where like a percentage of our end-of-year reversion could go straight to compensation for the next fiscal year. So we're not always getting a full.
Yeah, but you can't take reversion back into it's money that's out of your budget, you can't spend it twice, that's the problem. If it's in your budget, and let's say you underspent by $1 million, I can't add that $1 million and raise your budget from 44 to 45 million because it came out of your budget. If you take reversion money, you can't add it back to the budget because you spend it 2 times. We can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's impossible. I understand what you're saying. You can use it for capital projects, but you can't put it back in for operations.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong. If I have $700,000 reversed,
And that's out of your operations.
in the year, we didn't spend, we had $700,000 surplus.
And that's in your $45 million budget.
And the county, instead of giving it back to the schools for capital dollars,
Right.
you gave us 300 of it back, capital dollars. And we could spend our one-time spending on capital dollars.
Right.
Okay, and the county took the $400,000 back and put it in your fund balance.
Right.
Okay, now you have additional
It's still in your
$400,000.
budget, it's $45 million that you didn't spend, your budget is still $45
But
million.
his budget is gonna actually say, actual will be less than that
So
700,000.
Charlie, would that work?
That's
I'm just trying to say, is that, because that's what I'm thinking, I'm just letting you know that's how I'm.
But the issue is, we're gonna get, from whatever campaign it comes from, a whole bunch of letters that say, increase the school funding. Now, the reality is, your budget has gone from 45 million to 44.3, because you didn't spend that 700,000. So next year, when we start at 44.3,
Okay, all right.
You're saying
you're
you cut your budget.
gonna say we cut your budget.
Right, I see what you're saying.
And I'm gonna be not a happy camper, and nobody likes it when I'm not a happy camper.
Right.
The reality is, we can take that 700,000 back. Spend 350, put 350 in our budget. But when next year comes, you need to be at the front, of the school board needs to be at the front and say, we didn't spend X number of dollars. Our real budget is this, and now the county is helping us make the salary, study come to truth.
So, in the reality, even if you still worked on compensation, the overall budget would look like it decreased because you didn't.
Because you understand that you reduced the budget.
Right.
And the good thing about all that is that we appreciate you not spending down to the last penny. Because, well, to be honest, and everybody needs to know, the previous superintendent didn't do that. And you have inherited some issues from that time. But that's kind of the way life is.
Well, that's my thought on it, but, you know, as far, the answer to these questions quite simple, is that, you know, if we invested in compensation this year, we tried to get this first year done, whether it's 600, 650, the school contributed some, the county contributed, and we got 650 done. Then I guess the next thing we would have to say is next year, can we continue, we know we need 3 years before we can get that down to a $400,000, roughly around a $400,000 annual step increase on the new scales. So it's just that initial investment will get us on track, where now we're not looking at a $607 or to $620,000 annual step increase for all employees. You're down to $400,000 on the new scales because they're smaller scales. We just have to get there.
That's
So-
right, yeah. Can I ask you a question? Maybe my,
That's two questions.
oh.
Go ahead.
Can I ask him a question? That was one, so you.
And feel free to tell me if I'm missing anything. I just want to make sure I'm.
Okay, I guess it's time to go now.
Yeah. So if somehow your funding were to go up to 450 from us instead of the 350, I'm seeing that there's 156 here from the House, is that correct? Is that House budget?
Yeah, if it gets done, right.
Oh,
That
so-
was the best, that was the best case scenario, is the House budget.
So, I mean, say.
That was the lowest number.
No, the Senate, the Senate usually negative.
The governor's budget was 300.
Oh, the governor's budget's the best. I'm talking about the House and the Senate. The Senate
Okay.
version, we were minus 24,000, so.
Can we just follow this math for a second? So if we did the 450, you would have 150 from the state, correct? That gets you to, that gets you to 600. There is going to be, and I know I asked this today, you probably got the email, but there's probably some sort of savings every year. You said it's gonna cost you around 400,000 per year once you get going. There's probably some sort of savings you had, from older teachers leaving, or more experienced teachers leaving, and newer ones come in. So if you use that savings, you cobble it all together, that should get you to the number that you need for the salary compensation for 1 year, correct?
Well, before answering that, I need to make sure I verify the number of retirees. 'Cause I don't think we have that many retirees this year.
Last year your number was.
Last year, we were in, I think, up to 12 or a dozen.
Yeah, but the savings was, if I remember last year.
It
the
was around
savings-
90, I think around 60 to 90,
Yes.
around 70 or 80,000
Yes.
dollars. But you can have a year where you just have 4. You know, I know we're losing a good lady this year.
I'm just trying, yes.
But, I mean, so the number fluctuates. I have to check. I think Marcia's one day away. We'll wait for Miss. We just got that today from you about 3 o'clock.
Right,
So
right,
we haven't
right.
had a chance to pull the retirees
You
numbers.
see where I'm trying to go with this?
I'm trying. Yes, sir.
I mean, if you.
I would say you'd probably be lucky to see about $60,000 in savings.
But then that would still get us, because if you're 650, if you do the 450 plus the 150 is 600, and then if you did 60, that would get you to the 650.
But you still have to fund your schools. It's just your salary.
Yes.
See, I don't think there's really any way around this based on the revenue, other than to say you can use some of the revenue.
Dr. Parker, I have a question on your report you gave. On this market survey, it has minimum, midpoint, max. What are these figures based on?
Those were their preliminary estimates for a 3-year,
Based on minimum, maximum, or what?
based on the range of between minimum market average outcome, and they said they were basically using on the actual number. So I initially wanted to lower the number to the 5%. My new projection.
So
was
is it at 1.1, 5.3, or 20.5? Well, how did they come about with that figure? To bring it up to
To 1.9.
to the balancing, because it said there was a range of these percentages, and it doesn't tell me which percentage they use.
To get to that.
To get to that
I'll have to
number.
get you the actual methodology.
And is there any reason it has to be done in 3 years? I mean, like our employees just got first raise after 5 years, could you spread it out for 5?
That's a very good question. Here's what they recommended. They said basically by the time we get to 4 years, this plan only gets us to the market ranges that they're saying are this year. So 4 years down, the market primarily is probably changed significantly. So that's why they're saying, yes. But we look at it like, if we can get them close to what is ideal right now, and it even if it takes us 3 years to get there, we're making good progress, especially with conversation. And then get them on scale, the scale, that would be the ultimate. So we were thinking, really, this is a 4-year plan. It's not necessarily a 3-year plan, because in year 3, they're still not on scale. So 6 months, so they have to put them on scale in year 4, and that may be a little bit for some may already be on scale, but whoever's not on scale, on step, we have to.
A lot of bump for everybody.
No, it's not, I'm trying to get them to.
You can find out which of these percentages they use to come up.
I can explain the class date
Okay.
comparative. The way they do it is they take a dump of all their employees at the time when they're doing the study. And then they date them based on their class date. So what their class date is when they became in that class, just for example, myself. When I became into a finance director position with Caroline County Schools. And then they would place you on the new scales that they have based on those dates. So it's actual employees, actual dates.
So you're the new finance director?
I am.
Marcia Stevens.
Marcia Stevens.
I'm sorry, we haven't formally introduced.
That's okay, I was just looking for the 2 or 3 guys you had before, so. She looks a lot better than them, but okay.
So then what is,
My new left.
You're still here, right?
Dr. Parker, my apprehension in all this is, we're still trying to reconcile the 2016 budget, 2017 budget, and we're in March of 2018, almost April, and we don't have reconciled numbers. I mean, sit in my seat and be me for a minute and go, here we are, long after the year's over, and we're still not sure what was left over from last year. And then we want to take last year's money and try to use it on something that nobody can agree on what the number is.
Well, I'm with you. I'm completely with you. Part of the summary of the council on your side, on the county side, we can easily reconcile them again.
So wait,
But
so
those are-
Wait a minute, Curtis, you can't reconcile our numbers?
I'm having some issues understanding, based on the reconciliation that Ms. Hatcher was able to put together, what some of her numbers mean. So I met with the school finance department, and what I'm trying to do is put together all of the transactions that we posted on the county side in a format that they can go and compare, because at the end of the day, whatever we utilize on the county side had to come from invoices submitted by the schools. And if we didn't know where those dollars should be applied, whether it should have been to reversion funds or whether or not it should have been to the Anthem insurance funds, then we're not sure, and I'm not sure where those dollars should have been coded. So that's what we're trying to work together. And unfortunately, this isn't the only project that I have to do on a daily basis, and I'm trying
We
to
need to
train.
free you up from your other projects then.
Well, I'm also trying to train staff to take on some of the day-to-day responsibilities that I'm handling and pulling them in to help me get this data so we can hurry up and get this reversion done and know what the numbers are.
So we want to resolve this as soon as possible. We have detailed spending plans for what dollars we have spent from our appropriations and our.
If
And we're ready,
everything is
and we're
straight,
working
I'm
with them
still,
to try
I'm
to get
still a little rough from the scolding of the accounting and our audit. And remembering the nasty letter we got about how inappropriate we were to question finances, only to find out that there were some issues there. So we're gonna work, you're in good hands now, I'm sure, but we still need figures so we can figure out what we have to deal with, so.
And Madam Chair, we're gonna be able to fix this when we get the new financial system and have everybody on one system.
Which is coming.
Is that a real statement?
That's the first I've heard.
No, wait a minute, now, that's not the first you heard of it. It might be the first day you
Second time
heard it.
today?
Okay, I was gonna say, first day you heard it.
Okay.
But I mentioned that to you before, so, yeah.
But again, whatever works better for us working closely together, we're all for it.
And by the way, while I've gotten here, if you talk
I'm just trying to
to
be the same.
Pam, we need to have a 3-on-3 about school resource officers
I
with
didn't say it.
Sheriff Flippa and you and which usually multiple, or it's usually 2 on
Member
two or
representative.
3 or 3.
Just let me know.
Great,
And
thank
we
you.
follow more. And Pam will be working with that.
Mr. Kelly, the reversion funds and the Anthem rebate, once they're back, they're the same type of funds. Do they need to be still separated? Do we need to account for them separately?
We earmarked those in 2 different projects and things.
If we back up their budget, and we subtract their reversion funds from their budget, I have a whole lot less problem spending them as operational funds because the budget from before reflects what the real number was. Because if we have that agreement, then I'm with you, because the accounting system works, you subtract that number, instead of 45 to 44.3, that was your budget, as long as somebody goes, you approved 45, you only spent 44.3, I'm good to go there.
Well, I think once we come to consensus on our reconciliation, I think we'll be able to move forward. And I think we'll also have hopefully some dollars that we can work with you to meet some of your budget goals regarding compensation and other school priorities.
Is 700,000 a ballpark number for leftover from last year? Can you both nod your head yes?
Oh, you mean leftover at the end of June
At
30th?
the end of June 30 in the school budget?
They don't go yet.
I would be uncomfortable
Okay.
confirming that.
Okay.
Is it more than 100,000?
I would think I would. Yes,
But less than $1 million.
What's the reality in terms of the amount of money they've spent from their budget every year? Are they like, they don't spend 100%? They spend 95% of their budget?
First year I was here employed, we had roughly around 280,000 in reversion.
Right.
In FY16, we had around 720. And the reason that number kind of jumped a little bit is just how we calculated our end of the year spending. So that's why that was significantly different.
And I know we spent right much of that because we took $288,000 and put in this year's budget for them and bought a bus with it and did some things. So
Right.
I know we spent that.
A lot of that
But
went back to
the point
one-time
is,
needs in our budget.
the point is, just like your budget, Charlie, we never spend all of the revenue we have. We get close, maybe 98%, there's a couple of whatever left over. They're doing the same thing, so we could theoretically expect them to do the same thing if everything holds true. That there would be some reversion funds at the end of this year and at the end of 18.
The only thing that's clouding the picture right now is how the reconciliation between operational and the appropriations took place between Fran and JD's office. And neither one of them are here to
Well, for the third time today.
So once we.
For the third time today, once we get the new system and put everybody on our same financial system, the numbers will be easier to get.
How long do you think it'll take to get to the reconciliation?
I will have to move them out and get it done this week if not so.
Well, this week isn't gonna matter, to be honest with you.
Then I guess I'll have to make it that Wednesday.
Wednesday, as in 2 days from now?
No, I'm saying it doesn't matter until the first meeting in April. I'm saying you've got some runway. I'm not
When
trying
is
to
your first
speed it up.
meeting in April?
I'm not trying to, I'm trying to give you some room to realistically get it done, because
Yeah.
fast, good, and cheap, pick any two. Fast and good ain't cheap, and good and fast ain't gonna get
Sunday's
it.
the first, so Tuesday and the third.
Another whole week.
So, yeah.
10th is our next regular schedule.
But if we got it
And we get it.
next week,
We get it as soon as we can.
we can discuss it internally or whatever before then.
They've been meeting on it, we'll
Yes, we'll
figure it out. Yeah, not seeing them all in the office, I know.
I appreciate it.
So we lost our financial.
When you're sort of having to rebuild something from the people that aren't present that did it, everybody's going, I wonder what this was. So, thank God I haven't been included in the meetings.
And we know Chris had a lot of drives and fires.
We also lost, we don't have a very big finance department, we lost, our accounts payable and payroll person to retirement with Frank. They both went out the same day. And she had been here how long, 25 years or something, so I mean, so he's new and then had to hire a new person, so. And the other lady in the office has only been there a year, a little over a year, so everybody's, the whole finance is new.
If you want to get together this week, let's.
Yeah, we'll try to make some time to make it happen.
Any other questions from anyone?
Yes.
This-
Minor quick, Mr. Cully, on page 34 and 35, we have social services outside agency. Okay, I don't need to look at it, it's just a request. Could you get us a financial report or a budget from those entities? Because it added up to $700,000. It's quite a few of them, but I would like to know, I don't really care about Carolina, Polar Bear Fund. I don't care, I don't care about that. But if you could get us
They fill out a work, the group, a lot of them fill out something, Curtis will have to look and see, that finance association for the region.
I'm just saying, I would just like to see from those agencies, because I know they filled out, requests. But if I'm giving somebody $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, I'd like to know what their whole budget is.
All right, we'll see what we find out.
And we could just send an email to them and say, please send us your budget or a financial report from your treasurer. And if we get that by the end of the week, we'll have it all next week to look at that.
Mr. Kelly, the gala is funded here in the proposed budget.
Yeah, that's one of those things, we didn't know whether it was gonna happen or not, but it's gonna send anybody any money if it doesn't happen.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, 'cause it's December.
Habitat for Humanity has stepped up. I think they've proven themselves. Habitat for Humanity, right now, they're proposed for 1,000. Maybe increase that in some way.
Well, just gave them lease space too, don't forget.
Yeah, but that means you got
And we know the Beta Club going somewhere for nationals.
You do know that?
That's the qualifier.
We normally just approve, that's just such a little amount, you just
Yeah,
approve that.
That's fund balance money.
Okay.
That's right. I'd like to see the outline agency increase a little bit.
Well, I'd like to see it, and that's the matter, but I'm, since you got, basement daddy, car level daddy, report guy, there's nothing in there for that.
Guilford Day?
Look at
You can have fireworks.
Don't even get me started.
No, I'm serious now. $3,000 for each one of those.
Get a group,
They
find
have,
something.
There is a Milford Day already.
there's a Milford Day and there's a Belmont Ball. They could get 1,500 apiece.
And they gotta be a 501c3.
I mean, if you're talking about looking to make any cuts, that would be an area that you could actually do some cuts if you wanted to. But
Cutting laces?
no, I'm talking about all of these, if you want to. King George cut out everything.
I'm not saying cuts. I didn't say cut anything. I just wanna understand
I mean,
what
that's
we're doing based on this.
$335,000, right?
But if you know, you're talking $700,000.
Some of those things, you know, RCSB and,
But there's $345,000 total here.
I thought it was 700.
No, it's 340.
340, I mean, that's including, because it's total health and social services, that's
Yeah,
different.
that's
I'm
what
talking about the
700, right.
outside agencies is 345.
But social services is not listed on here.
Yes, it is.
That's everything outside agency. Social services is own department. This whole section
It's just 340.
is $700,000.
It says total health and social services, there's,
The health departments.
We count the health department.
yes.
Well, we can
It's-
cut
it's
it,
right up
that's
there.
a state.
total outside agencies,
Yes, state.
345,000. It's increasing $4,859.
I mean, it's all those things are there, they're all good, they're all valid things. I'm just asking you if you could send them an email and say, we'd like to see your budget
Yeah,
or
we've got-
financial report.
I've got a-
Shoot that up tomorrow.
I've got something that Spotsylvania does, and I've talked to Mr. Shebel about it, I don't know if it was in the budget or not. If it was a slight ad, Spotsylvania County does a fundraiser for the high school and so forth, they do actually, which would help out with the cleanup that we've talked about at the exits. They do a cash for trash program, where you, for like a club,
Each bag is worth something.
each bag is for $5, and so like a club or organization at the high school or middle school can go out there, and it helps with Mr. Shebel, it helps with, I mean, I just think that would be something that might be worthwhile.
Who runs that, school or public works?
In Spotsylvania, it's actually the recreation department.
Oh, good, we'll sign it to the grant.
But I have to go through all that stuff with VDOT about safety and all.
Yeah, that's something that I
And
think.
kids under a certain
you
age
can't
can't
do
be
it.
out there.
Yeah, that would be something that the schools could worry about. I mean, we could, but I mean, as far as, but I mean, if there was a way that could be funded, I think that would help as far as Mr. Shebel's department, and it would help the clubs that want to do it. They do it in Spotsylvania. So I don't know, would that be something that we would be at?
We could add that to our agenda for the Toronto meeting.
Mr. Shebel, can you get us more information? Can you get us more information on that?
I've got all the information.
Even $2,000, 400 bags of trash.
We're looking at 5,000 to start, but.
Yeah, 5,000.
Gotta get the tires to the bag, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Mr. Shebel, if we need to find a little extra money to maybe help the school system out or hire one of their employees if they want, you think, has the Rappahannock water withdrawal permit, I don't see the 600,000 in there?
Yeah, it's,
Do
we
you
got a
think
lower
we
number.
might have some leeway in that?
Yeah, it's actually 300 and.
That's all borrowed money. That's all planned to be financed, that's all financed.
Oh, daggone, figure is that?
That's not cash, I don't have that cash.
You know we're supposed to cut that.
The Rappahannock
You're gonna have to put imaginary money in one color and real money in another
That's not a
color.
bad idea. I'll make you that, that's a good idea. I'll put all the finance money in a different color, yeah. Everything that was in everything in the CIP,
You did say
Yeah,
that.
we did talk about that.
other than the schools 109, all the rest in the county CIP and utility CIP was all financed. Lease, purchase, or finance. We were gonna try to finance the Rappahannock withdrawal and some well-developed, all at one along with some other finance.
$200,000.
Yeah, Robert.
So you haven't found any money, you haven't found any
A
money.
couple of $1,000 of interest, okay.
found the bar.
You know Prince,
It was
Sorry.
good, it was nice while it lasted.
Prince Edward.
But that number's 300.
Yeah, if I'd had to fund that, that would have been just more out of the fund balance. So
Already raised daughter.
But it's one of those projects, we need to keep
We
marching.
we definitely need it. I'm not saying we don't need it, I just.
And when we prepared this, 600 was the number, it's come down since then, but I'm still using the public hearing for.
Because they're letting us use some of the old studies.
Correct.
things that we've done in the
Right,
past.
the initial thing was gonna be more.
All right, that's good. Any other questions?
We want to
Joe?
talk about tax rate?
I move that we keep the tax rate the same. I second. We've already advertised. Well, we have to have the public hearing first, but I mean.
Well, you gotta give direction on the public hearing. Right now, Spotsylvania's at 85, proposing a 3-cent. King William's at 90 cents. I don't know what they're proposing. Staff's at 99 cents. Hanover's at 81, Orange is at 80, and some change. Louis is at 72, King George 70, Westmoreland 61, and King George is somehow at 54, where we used to be.
Prince George,
But that's not.
It's not on the list. Prince George is at 86 and proposing a 5-cent increase.
and what is King George?
King George is at 70, but that's because of their landfill.
And
Louise has got
The power plant.
nuclear power plant.
But Spotsylvania's is actually probably, aren't they coming down because they're doing a reassessment? So
I don't know that.
they're actually doing a reassessment, so I think that 85 is actually gonna come down to like 83, because they're doing a reassessment, and their reassessment went way up.
you
Not
said,
to mention a lot of money for.
Oh, yeah, they-
like, you said ours was 50-something, ours used to be 50-something?
10 years
Is
ago,
that what you
it's
said?
free.
Yeah, but we had 3 reassessments since then.
Yeah, it went down big time from the
So,
roof.
53, and I've got a spreadsheet that I showed Jeff Black the other week about how much you actually paid, and it's really on a fairly level par.
Correct.
Over that 10 years.
Because remember, 8 cents of that is school funding.
Right.
Even with that included.
But we built a whole school
We built Wilson Park.
and a sewer system, and we've hired 35 firefighters,
A wastewater treatment plant.
a wastewater treatment plant. We've done all of that. I really didn't,
Radio system.
and a radio system, really didn't creep up a whole lot. Yes, that's my point.
No,
All those fire trucks we didn't buy for 8 years, and the garbage truck we didn't buy, and the stuff we didn't spend money on 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago,
I'm sure all this. Talk about
30 years ago.
We did a great job with the money we had, and a lot of times we had to finance stuff, but.
And all the while, our debt climbs to our,
It's going down now.
to our level of, up to 2 years ago, we're starting to actually compete.
That's what we're trying to do.
Anyway, I'm just saying that I voted for a 1 penny last year. I would be okay with it. People in my district say if that's what it takes to get officers, if that's what it takes to send to schools, if that's what it takes, they're for it. Some might even offer more.
Well, maybe we should make our special tax district then. I'm all for that. That's the case. Anybody want to second that?
Yes, you do.
Special tax?
I'll second the five.
All right. You sure you wanna jump out there like that?
I'm just saying that, throwing it out. If it's pretty firm that y'all not gonna vote for a 1 penny, then we keep the numbers the same. If you are gonna vote for a penny, then we got $250,000 more dollars to deal with.
Well, it's only a half joke, but the county administrator has advertised for a flat tax rate. So unless we advertise again for an increase, we can't raise the
Two
tax rate.
ads in the paper and that's fixed.
Okay.
I'm just saying. Had to be said.
I'm all for that special tax district, I like that.
All right, I have a motion on the table for a 1 cent tax increase, do I?
Advertise for one.
I have a motion, somebody.
No, I
Something.
could make a motion before we do the, public hearing.
Yeah, you can't do it tonight.
Can't do it today.
No, that was,
You gotta wait 7 days after the public hearing.
that was obviously a hint that it was time to go.
He's delirious.
No, I knew you couldn't do that. I was delirious.
Well, I think that there are 4 hands points that open up the thought and conversation, so y'all can think that.
That's up to him to make that motion tomorrow if you would like to do that.
All right, anything else, gentlemen?
Sure.
Do I have a second?
You wouldn't have time to.
Second.
How about the 10th, they would put us in there later.
I have a motion to adjourn, and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen. Thank you, Stan.
Thank you.